going to go through plastics, partnerships, purpose, and sort of safeguarding really our little corner of the coastline. So yeah, we'll crack on. Essentially, I work for the East Grampian Coastal Partnership, and that is a little partnership that covers the area of the coast from Fraserburgh down to Arbroath and Cyrus Way, really. So yeah, that's just kind of highlighted in blue around there in the northeast of Scotland. So we're a not-for-profit organisation, and ultimately we're just sort of advocating for a sustainable use of the coastline, and have sort of that kind of responsibility that goes with it. And we tend to do that through educational workshops, used with schools, communities, and businesses, but also to actually do a lot of beach cleaning. So where that comes in is the Turning the Plastic Tide project. So there's a lot of acronyms, EGCP, TTPT, apologies. But yeah, our primary focus within TTPT is beach cleans, essentially. So again, I've said this already, but that is with schools, communities, and businesses, and we try and sort of have our outreach as much as possible through those channels. However, we don't just do beach cleans, so we train volunteer beach cleaners sort of in the safe and effective delivery of their own cleans, because we don't just want to kind of organise them all ourselves. We want to mobilise the community and get them out there doing their own. So there is actually so many different groups and organisations doing beach cleans, which is great, but we are here as a source of info if people need a little bit more guidance on these kind of things. So we deliver marine education workshops, again, with that focus primarily on beach litter. And we also have little different projects, like we supply a network of beach clean boxes. That was through an initiative called Take 4 for the Shore. And those are, I'll have a slide on that later, they're basically distributed up and down the coast. There's a fair few representatives in this room from those areas where the beach clean boxes actually feature as well. Again, mobilising the community. If they're there for a little dog walk, and they want to grab a few bits of litter as they do, then the means are there for them to do it. We also do things like we attend harbour days, different community events and outreach, again, talking about marine litter issues. And of course, we try and promote all this as much as we can across our social channels as well. We do tend to work with regulators where we can. So SEPA, Scottish Water, for example, on basically what we do and do not ideally, well, in the case of Scottish Water, put down your loo. Certain things definitely shouldn't be going down there. And we also work on specific issues. For example, we've had campaigns in the past trying to address the issues of things like disposable barbecues, and also we've took action against specific things. Biomedia spill. This is basically a plastic biomedia that was in a sewage filtration system that got flooded and washed all down the River Ithen, where I am in Newborough, and we had a specific campaign to target the cleanups of that. I'm telling you, when you like little tiny particles like this, when you're on your hands and knees in winter picking those up, I was questioning my life choices. But anyway, lots of different things. We do research as well. In effect, what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to do our best for the northeast area of Scotland. And I think, MCS and the talks earlier, it's kind of looking at the whole different coastlines and maybe coming at a slightly different aspect and just kind of talking about that regional aspect for our little coastal partnership. So we'll see if there's any kind of differences to talk about here. Now, I don't need to go on about plastics and types and origins and stuff with you guys. You know all this already. Maybe what I'm just trying to point out here with the origins, so for our northeast area, we kind of get all the usual rubbish, nearly swore, all the usual stuff, kind of apart from aquaculture-based stuff, really. That is definitely something that sort of northeast-wise we kind of spared from, to be honest. Obviously, all these origins, just to reiterate, you've all heard it 1,000 times before, but the impacts to the organisms and the habitat as well, all these things, probably quite visually is, of course, the entanglement issues. So we've got a seal there that actually was on the Newborough Ifan estuary where I stay. I'm happy to report that we did actually manage to get this seal untangled, and this particular individual was fine, which is always nice to report. That was with work with the BDMLR. But also sometimes it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. So this wee edible crab here, was sat down. I've spotted it on the dive, so entangled. This is just recreational gear that has been wound around this little chap. But yeah, decided to just actually bring it up slowly, minded our fingers and just snipped off all this gear and put the wee crab back. So yeah, happy to say he survived another day. Just a little thing there, quite fulfilling really. But anyway, apart from the kind of literal impacts to the organisms and the habitat, you've also got things that impact the human and the socio-economic impacts really. So under these become the public health risks as well. So, if you've got unsafe stuff on the beach, you've probably got it on the water, under the water, waiting to come in. I mean, look at it. This is a place, this photograph is Kemble. It features a few times, this spot, just next to Fraserburgh. It is a particular place that's sort of targeted thanks to, it's close to harbours. You can see the types of litter and where they're probably originating there without me having to point it out too much. But you also have quite a lot of currents impact in there as well. And we've had folk that have done sort of different modelling on those areas and showing that it is a particular, just a litter sink basically as well. But it is actually a really important place for migratory birds. They'll be there, they'll be picking through all this debris as well, looking for little inverts to feed on. But I mean, look at it, it's a dump. Let's not, dress it up. That in itself, you're not going to be getting any beach awards and like little tourism awards when something looks like that. And this is a place we've targeted many times, which, it's probably a point for discussion, actually. Getting ahead of myself slightly, talking about perhaps this area, and I'll maybe just expand a little bit on that in a little while. But just to show you, really, these are the kind of groups that we work with. So community-based groups, schools, college, unis, all the kind of education-based groups, basically, and businesses and the city and the Shire Council. So I've kind of just circled there the businesses and the city and the Shire because as a non-profit, we couldn't do this without the support that we get. It costs to get rid of rubbish. And again, we've already highlighted a few issues with where that rubbish is going, what could be better. Again, I'll talk about that in a little while. But ultimately, without that kind of collaborative nature, we wouldn't be able to get rid of the rubbish in terms of the councils. We need to be able to think what can we do with that. And the businesses, they're funding quite a lot of the time now at Kemble. They're self-funding skips, the skip disposals, and they're just funding us directly to be able to go out and do this. For the community cleans we do and the school groups, etc., we do that free of charge. We don't obviously charge them to kind of turn up, organise and run the little show. But for businesses, we've sort of, let's say we strongly encourage a financial support there. Again, more photos of rubbish. So just to kind of give you an idea of the types of rubbish that we tend to have in the northeast. So actually, a lot of fishing-based gear. So it's very, very interesting, when you talk about what kind of shows up on the Highlands and Islands. And sometimes, in certain respects, Fraserburgh Peterhead, not that dissimilar. Huge volumes of fishing-based litter. I've picked up your survey form because I think it's going to be really, really interesting to look at that in and around the northeast. So, bulky nets, ropes. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of this as well can be historical. So it gets buried, different tidal shifts, weather fronts, sand picking up, ropes can be completely buried, it looks pristine. You come along 2 weeks later after a storm from a different direction, a particularly high tide, it's a dump again. So, it is a very variable environment. The picture sort of underlying on the right-hand side is just the sort of absolute minefield. Surveying that is horrific, basically. It's everywhere. However, you can kind of get an essence of some of the photos there as well, is that it's very rocky, it's not easily accessible. We do sometimes have like a forklift, I don't mean a forklift, whatever you call them, some sort of vehicle. Yes, thank you. Vehicle help to be able to remove some of these kind of larger bags of things that are filled and take it up on a higher track, but you can't actually get something directly down on the beach. So again, that's, we all know it, that's the challenge of these kind of environments. When we can get a tractor down, these are usually, occasionally from local farmers, usually organised, however, via the council. And quite honestly, without their help for some of these things, we just couldn't shift the rubbish. We did a clean-up last year along Sandford Bay, where some of these photos are taken from. And yes, some of that was historic, but 25.5 tonnes of litter in about 4 hours. So it gives you a real idea of the scale of things. However, when we were back this year, I think I'm right in saying, quick panic, but I think it was about 2 tonnes that we got in that time. So, if you can get that, it's still bad, but if you can get rid of some of that historic stuff, then hopefully you're starting to impact an area for the better. Purpose-wise of things, I mean, again, I don't need to say this to you guys, but it's that kind of initial visual sort of impact there that you get for a before and after. You know that from after doing that clean that you have made a direct impact on that beach at that time for those marine organisms and habitat generally in that area. So it's just a nice little before and after photo really there of Cairnbulg. That's being said, I wouldn't like to see that after about 2 weeks again. Let's quickly move on. Just for our kind of like little stats then for our organisation. So the Turning the Plastic Tide project, actually, I don't think I said earlier, but it only actually started in late 2018. It was as a direct result of the litter that we were seeing starting to accumulate along the coastline during that time. And so obviously there was plateaus during the COVID period, and things did dip away slightly. But in recent years, we've really kind of ramped up and carried on the efforts. So lots of different volunteers. I think now, because, I closed this off at end of September, actually. So, over 9,000 volunteers that we've had for beach cleans. And when, it's small fry, I feel like after, when I'm talking, you've seen like what NCS are achieving with their kind of much kind of bigger impact. But along the kind of coastal environment, it's still pretty decent, the area that we're working in. So lots of volunteers, over 400 cleans now. And the tonnage is just sort of going up and up and up. So, we're actually, that was then, we were just less shy of 140, but I know we're over 145 tonnes now again. So it's, it really, really, really does add up over time. And there's kind of safeguarding aspect as well. I always feel, this has come from the volunteers. Okay, we're just rocking up, we're checking tide times, we're bringing equipment, we're maybe doing a bit of rallying, come on, but it's the volunteers that are putting in the time and the effort, and that is really and truly what is safeguarding, in our case, the Grampian coastline. So, it really is a phenomenal effort from everyone. And yes, we've also done some surveys. This is something that I did want to mention. I'm so aware from the other two talks already. We've got so much data between us, so much. And for our surveys, we've done in exactly the same way as yours. This is obviously a breakdown at just a more basic, obvious, bigger scale. But we have all that data, and you know what, we need to just kind of combine all of this, because I think all in together, things with the beach, it's going to be phenomenal. I mean, actually, I don't want to look at that data. You know, someone can have that job of doing that, or maybe AI, but anyway. But anyway, this table really just outlines the huge volume of all of the cleans that we do. What mostly are we finding? Plastic by an absolute phenomenal amount here. What's the lowest there? 73% is the lowest from Kinnaird Head. But, you know, huge volumes, basically, really highly represented, from that area compared to everything else. Obviously, again, this is only true for the northeast. What I should have done is actually broken this down into where that litter's come from as well. It would have been quite interesting, but maybe that's another thing for me to do. Sorry, this is kind of a bit horrible. You can probably just about read the bottom bit there. But when we do educational and outreach events, we try and kind of have it as balanced as possible. There is overlap between these kind of thing, because obviously community groups includes all at different age ranges, and you know, the youth's kind of separated off there slightly, but you know, we try and do as much as possible. Different talks, different places. We do things like not just surveys and litter surveys, but we do also do marine mammal observation days, and it's just sort of ways to be able to talk to the wider community as much as possible, and just to sort of make them aware of our coastline and what's happening. The Beach Clean Box initiative then, take 4 for the shore. So that was actually from Nature Scott initiative originally, I believe. But we've got 19 of these boxes now in place, and they look like the photos on the right-hand side. Macduff Aquarium there, you will, if you're anywhere familiar of the Northeast, you'll realise that Macduff Aquarium's actually a bit over the border. So I used to work at Macduff Aquarium though, so that's the link there. And hopefully anyone from the Moray Firth Coastal Partnership isn't too offended with me pushing over the border slightly. But yeah, we have these up and down everywhere else. Several, 2 even facts at Stonehaven. By the way, if ever you're going to do a beach clean, Stonehaven is so clean that I can't, thanks to the efforts of Paws on Plastic, I tend to avoid that area. Anyway, it's so clean. But yeah, they're all up and down there. Again, they've just got a few essential items in there: gloves, pickers, bags and hoops, that sort of thing, sanitizer shots, boxes. And people, you know, if they're going there to walk the dog or whatever, they can just grab what they want, go, you know, do a little pick, and then put the items back after. So again, it's just another kind of way of sort of hopefully mobilising the community a little. Science-wise as well. So what we realised is that there is actually quite a lot of research on the actual litter itself. Example, composition of plastics and that sort of thing. There is also quite a lot of research about interactions with wildlife, so entanglements and ingestion. But there's not actually that much on the sort of physical environment itself. And my background is research, so I was kind of keen to, within this role, sort of also kind of, you know, provide kind of my skills to sort of do as much sort of research and kind of feed into that knowledge bank as much as possible as well. So a couple of years back, we got some funding from Sea Changers, William Grant Foundation, to essentially, we got data loggers which log temperature. And I'd seen a study that was actually out in Australia, I think it was, where they looked at how beach sediments change their temperature dependent upon litter loading. So I was thinking, okay, Australia, Scotland, you know, pretty similar. So let's have a look. It was something that was fairly simple to be able to go and do and to put into practice. You can't read that there, but I mean, well, actually, you might be able to see a little bit. But ultimately, we buried data loggers in the sand at different depths, under different loadings of beach plastic, high, medium, low. I mean, yeah, we decided what was high, medium, and low, depending upon each individual beaches. But suffice to say, break it down, that ultimately medium and high litter loading basically increased maximum and minimum daily temperatures. So it is literally affecting that sort of physical beach environment, which of course could be impacting fauna, particularly inverts that are living within these kind of sandy beach zones. And I think when you actually combine that with pressures from climate change as well, then potentially, you're getting quite a lot of pressures on these critters in the marine environment. So it was just nice basically to be able to contribute a kind of scientific study as well. But moving forward, people say, what's your hope for your coastal partnership? In a way, it's that I don't need a job, but realistically, with the beach cleans and things, that's not really going to happen anytime soon. I think the massive thing here is waste management. It's been talked about a bit. Yes, it's fantastic. Rob, you mentioned at the very start, let's get it all off the beach, but then what? It goes to landfill, it goes wherever. So there's, landfill and incinerator sites. So, and rightly, actually, when I'm doing cleans, I'm getting more and more questions. What happens to that litter? What happens to that litter? Rightly so. And actually, I want to be able to answer that better from my point of view as well. So I'm going to go to... I said I've requested visits to landfill and incinerator sites. Landfill, I kind of know really what happens to the landfill. However, it's still nice to be quite interesting to actually, do a clean, have the litter, and then follow that. Incinerator sites, I've managed to actually get a visit booked in for January to the Aberdeen incinerator site, which is apparently now back up and running. And I think this is going to be really interesting and insightful. Not sure what they're going to think of me turning up with my list of questions that I've got for all this, because there is still a fair bit of controversy in terms of the air quality that's coming out around these incinerator sites. There's lots of different questions that I'm actually really interested to find out more about. So I think that'll be really good. In terms of the recycling-based things, so we're going to have collaborations. Well, we have collaborations with Behaviour Change Cornwall. They're not here today. They were on the project One Wave Cleanup, making, I think some of us have got them on, different beach clean bracelets from that. Shout out to those guys. Great way of getting, repurposing, resourcing, and upcycling beach clean nets. We've also got a local company, Decmar, which we're really hoping will get off the ground, again based just outside of Fraserburgh, to do like recycled projects with some of the waste. But I think, make no mistake, it's a huge challenge because a lot of the litter as well, it's gross. It's like, it's covered in gunk and this and that and the other and potentially different chemicals. So in terms of what can be truly done with that volume is a discussion to be had, I think, definitely here today. But yeah, just quickly, I just wanted to point out there my Golden Wonder crisp packet. This is my oldest retro piece of litter. Pick a prize, 1969, okay? Yes, on the back there, I think the closing date for the competition is 1st of July 1969. So one problem we do have in the northeast is erosion of landfill sites. So they were put, at the time they weren't that close to the coast, however in time they are now. And for me, in a way, this is an absolute definition of madness, right? I'm going along, doing beach cleans, picking up litter that has come out of landfill that was put in there in the 60s, 70s. It's insane, really. So, we have to get a hold on this. We have to think in advance when we're doing these different things, when we're dealing with the litter, where is this going and what are we going to be doing 30, 40, 50 years from now? Is the problem truly solved? I think, so in all that, thank you so much for listening to me. I've no idea how long I've waffled on there, David, sorry. Those are our social medias. Please, hopefully we'll get chats today and more with the panel discussions, but if you've got any sort of different questions, please reach out to me. And I'm pretty excited to kind of just see where we can go from here. And thank you for inviting me in Project One Wave. Thank you.